Hi there! Welcome to What is Islam Academy. Let's learn about Islam together.
One of the most profound questions in interfaith dialogue is, if the Bible has been changed, where is the original gospel? This question isn't meant to provoke, but to seek understanding. The search for the original gospel is really a search for the authentic message of Jesus, what he actually taught before centuries of interpretation and change. Let's explore what Islamic tradition says about this scripture, how history shaped the texts we have today, and what both Muslim and Christian scholars say about this crucial topic. In Islam, the gospel began as a single divine revelation called the Injil, sent directly to Jesus by God. The Qur'an describes the Injil as guidance and light, confirming the Torah and foretelling a final prophet after Jesus. Unlike the four Gospels in the New Testament, the Injil was not a biography or collection of stories, but a singular scripture revealed to Jesus. Muslims believe in the original Injil but do not equate it with the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke and John, which are seen as later accounts. For Muslims, belief in the original, unaltered Injil is an article of faith, even though its text is no longer accessible. The real question is, what happened to that divine book and why can't we read it today? The New Testament contains four Gospels: Matthew, Mark, Luke and John, each offering a unique perspective on Jesus' life. These are not direct revelations to Jesus but historical and theological narratives written decades after his time. For example, Luke admits he is compiling an account based on earlier sources, not recording direct revelation. The Gospels are testimonies about Jesus, not a scripture revealed to him. Muslims distinguish between the Injil, a divine book given to Jesus, and the Gospels, which are human accounts. While the Gospels may contain elements of Jesus' teachings, Muslims believe the original pure revelation is no longer fully accessible. This distinction is key to understanding the Muslim perspective on the Bible. Jesus never wrote a scripture, nor did he instruct his disciples to do so during his lifetime. His teachings were delivered orally, remembered and shared by his followers. The idea of compiling his teachings into a written gospel emerged decades after his death. The earliest gospel, Mark, was written around 70 CE, about 40 years after Jesus' ministry. The Gospels relied on oral traditions and possibly lost written sources, shaped by the needs of early Christian communities. This gap between Jesus' life and the written text is a major reason Muslims see the Gospels as different from the original Injil. Jesus' teachings were first preserved through oral transmission, in a world where memory was key and literacy was rare. As stories moved from Aramaic to Greek, translation and cultural differences introduced changes. The early Christian community faced persecution, leading to the loss and destruction of many early texts. The New Testament as we know it emerged from a wide variety of writings, some of which were later excluded from the canon. Books like the Gospel of Thomas or Peter were once considered scripture by some, but were left out after centuries of debate. The process of selecting which books to include was shaped by human decisions, not direct revelation. This history explains why the original teachings of Jesus may not have survived in their purest form. No original manuscript of any New Testament book exists today. We only have copies made centuries later. Ancient writing materials like papyrus and parchment decayed quickly, and persecution led to the destruction of many early texts. Roman authorities and later church leaders sometimes ordered Christian scriptures to be burned or suppressed. As theological views shifted, some texts were deliberately excluded and destroyed. The New Testament we have is the result of survival, selection, and sometimes suppression. This loss of original documents is a key reason why the original gospel is no longer available. The New Testament was formed through centuries of debate, selection, and church councils, not by a single divine command. Different communities used different books, and the canon was only settled in the late 4th century. Church leaders decided which books to include based on apostolicity, widespread use, and theological alignment. Many early Christian writings were excluded even if once considered scripture. From an Islamic perspective, this human process explains how the original Injil could have been lost or replaced. In Islam, the story of revelation continues with the Qur'an, believed to be the final, perfectly preserved message from God. The Qur'an is described as a guardian over previous scriptures, confirming their truths and correcting later alterations. It honors Jesus and Mary, affirms Jesus' miracles but clarifies his role as a prophet, not divine. The Qur'an's preservation was ensured through memorization and immediate written documentation, compiled within decades of Muhammad's death. This process guaranteed the Quran's authenticity, unlike the fate of earlier scriptures. For Muslims, the Quran is the final, unchanged guide for humanity. It serves as the ultimate criterion for truth, including the message of Jesus. So where is the original gospel? Historically, the Injil as a divine book revealed to Jesus no longer exists in its original form. Yet, its core message, the call to worship one God, remains central in both Islam and the teachings of Jesus. The true legacy of Jesus is not a lost book, but the universal truth he proclaimed preserved in the Quran. Seeking the true message of Jesus means looking beyond centuries of interpretation to his call for pure monotheism. For Christians, this is an invitation to explore the roots of their scriptures. For Muslims, a reminder to share this message with wisdom. Ultimately, Muslims believe God's guidance was never abandoned. The Quran stands as the final protected revelation. We invite you to read it, compare its teachings, and seek the truth with an open mind. The good news of Jesus, Muslims believe, is alive and waiting to be discovered in the final testament.